Matt is always the kindest when he gives his introductions. But Matt's right, though. Financial planning and being the best entrepreneur I can possibly be, those are my two passions. Reading, podcasting, everything I can do in those two areas. I just love that. And that's why we're here today. So this next session, it's 30 years in the making. As I said, next year will be it's our 30th anniversary. So 1996 is when we put it together. And I think about that entrepreneurial journey and how we got to where we are, and the fact that we're about to sit here with a good friend, AJ, and Tony. Pretty special afternoon. So let me introduce AJ to you. The book you have in your hands, Money, Master the Game, that is actually the personal finance section for New York Times Book of the Century. And in this book, AJ joined Tony to interview 50 of the most powerful titans in finance. People like Ray Dalio, Carl Icahn, Warren Buffett, Charles Schwab, the biggest names that are out there. In 2016, AJ orchestrated a strategic merger between Gupta Wealth Management, his financial planning practice, and Creative Planning. They actually took that firm from $18 billion of assets to north of $100 billion of assets. AJ ultimately sold his practice, 100% of the practice, once that firm had a multi-million-dollar valuation. Really special story. AJ is now a partner and board member of Kaz Investments, which gives him a unique access and unique insight into the alternative investment world. He also sits on the board of Deepak Chopra Foundation, the Tony Robbins Foundation, and the Gupta Family Foundation. He now lives in Miami, which I get to see him all the time when I'm down there, which has been fun, with his wife of 24 years and his 3 teenage children. Let's watch a brief video, and then we'll have AJ come join us.
Soulful man who's a genius in his area and also extremely humble, and one of my dearest friends. Charles Schwab picked him as one of the faces for 10,000 fiduciaries in the country, as the people of the highest integrity. And now I have the privilege of having a family office, and he's the principal of that office. He manages the Robbins family money and the Gupta family money.
Over decades, he has given me sage advice and also educated me. I am financially literate because of him.
And AJ has been my trusted advisor, changed my financial life.
We have a very vast global portfolio of non-correlated assets, of real estate and private equity, and not only private equity, but we've taken ownership stakes in almost 4 dozen private asset management companies. So how do we navigate this world that we live in right now? Do everything in moderation. Don't get so enamored with a specific strategy that you heard. Find out why you're investing it, where is it fitting in the portfolio, and do it with purpose. If I'm gonna go into this investment strategy, is it purely for tax purposes? And if it is, I wanna make sure that the tail's not wagging the dog. I really wanna make sure that the investment opportunity merits even if it wasn't an opportunity zone. The last 10 years, alternative asset classes have grown by $1 trillion, and we expect it to grow by another $1 trillion over the next 5 years. We've been looking for ways to get non-correlating assets in our portfolio.
AJ Gupta is not just a financial expert. He's like a financial yogi, a money mystic. Transformed my life financially and made me richer in every conceivable way.
So sometimes you want to take a step back and you want to be thoughtful, you want to be proactive, but you don't want to make emotional decisions.
AJ Gupta, big round of applause. Great job, thank you. Good. First, thank you. This is amazing. As I said, this is 30 years in the making, so to have you here, it's really special.
I'm happy to be here. Happy to be here with all these amazing wealth managers and financial advisors from all over the country.
Yeah. So tell us, doing the book project with Tony, meeting Charles Schwab, Ray Dalio, what was that like?
It was surreal, because for me it was like a kid in a candy store, because these are the most powerful people in finance all over the world. So when I had the opportunity to have front row seats to these interviews, because Tony has access to all these minds, brilliant minds, and me being his financial guy, he brought me along for the journey. And I'll tell you, I learned more in those 150 hours of interviews than I did in my 25 years in the industry. and some of the amazing relationships that we've built since that book came out. That specific book, Money Master the Game, came out in 2014, and we built some tremendous relationships. Some of the key things that I remember when I kind of look back, it's still surreal. And sometimes I still go back and listen to the recordings because some of those things were universal principles that apply in all markets. I remember when I met Charles Schwab, I first was, this was like 12 years ago, I was like, Mr. Schwab, he goes, please call me Chuck. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'll be so disrespectful if I call him Chuck. But he was just the nicest guy. He was so focused on transparency. He was all about the little guy and the individual investors. And I can't believe he built Charles Schwab in his lifetime. So that was really, really fascinating for me. I think another conversation with Ray Dalio, I remember him sharing about how to design a portfolio that will last for generations to come. He talked about how to allocate. Actually, in the book, in Money Master the Game, it actually details a strategy that if you had to leave wealth to the next generation and his children could not touch the allocation, just rebalance it, he actually gave a very specific formula, which was his fund is called All Weather, and he allowed us to call this the All Season strategy because you could design it with ETFs.
Awesome, I love it.
So it's and many, many more. I remember one of the biggest things for me, a highlight was when Ray Dalio's son Matt was getting married, and they said, okay, we don't want to marry in-law, we don't want to manage in-laws' wealth. So they gave me a referral, and I was like scratching my head saying, did I just get a referral from the Dalios? Like, how did this even happen? Because I never took myself that seriously. It was just like, wow, it was just one amazing experience after the other. I can't believe what a journey it was.
Does anything stick out, like they are the titans of industry? What are they doing and how did they get to where they are when compared to those that have tried and maybe not quite get to that level?
I feel like every one of them gave some really unique approaches, but some of the universal principles was like asymmetric risk reward, really stressed on some of the foundations that many of you know in this room about the perils of concentration and leverage, and actually, building in tail risk, like protection against a major catastrophe. So things like Nassim Taleb wrote the book, The Black Swan, and he has a firm that he's part of where they actually have solutions that actually help, create that explosive insurance protection in case the portfolio drops. So it's just one after the other. And then what I did is I've applied a lot of those pieces as I put mine and Tony's portfolio together over time, where we like the public equities and public fixed income, and we don't have a large allocation like a lot of people. As the net worth starts to increase, you start getting a more wherewithal for going into the private investments because you already have enough funds earmarked for liquidity. So I always use this as an example when teaching this. People ask me, HA, how do you decide how much should be liquid versus illiquid? And the example that I use is, well, if someone came up to me and said that they have a $100,000 portfolio, you should be 100% liquid. That's like and then if someone came up to me, again, I'm using this example to drive home the point with individual investors. I go, if someone came up to me and said, we've got a $100 billion portfolio, how much of it should be liquid versus illiquid? And I could build a case if they have the wherewithal that they could go 99% illiquid and take advantage of their illiquidity risk premium because they still have $1 billion for a rainy day.
Sure, yeah, I love it. What's been so much fun is over the last year since we met, the fact that we can talk shop about being entrepreneurs and being financial advisors, and so amazingly successful practice as a financial advisor. Some of the achievements with your practice, the valuable lessons you learn having a financial advisory practice. It's a room of financial advisors here. So what are your thoughts on that?
I feel like some things that I learned building my business was my objective is, okay, I didn't go to an Ivy League school. I didn't grow up in a family that was a part of a country club. It was, I didn't have some of those benefits, at least what I thought were those benefits that what you needed. But what I realized is if you outwork everyone they can in the office, when I was with the large brokerage firms, add as much value than anyone else can add. And my objective was, how do I make each client a raving fan and become addicted to me and my team, number one, and then how do I turn them into my VP marketing? And if I use that as my approach, first I thought whenever we want a new relationship, I said the only time we truly will celebrate this new relationship is when they refer us someone. That means they came over, it wasn't an emotional decision, they've had some time with us, and now they've gone to what I call the ultimate goal is now they're starting to refer people to us. So You get that small, if you have as you have your existing practices, instead of just always looking for new clients from outside, if you just, number one is make sure you keep those clients. Just keep those clients. And then if you could come up with a strategy where you're focusing on how to replicate each one of those, that's a pretty smart way to double your book of business.
Yeah. And referrals, that's really the scorecard, isn't it, to a great practice?
That's our practice grew by referrals, and the referrals just kept compounding to a point where it just became a beast.
Yeah.
I used to always dream, how could I have unlimited amount of prospects that want to do business with me? And I came up with it happened over time, but I came up with an even better quality question was, how can I have unlimited qualified wealth managers that can handle all the qualified prospects that are coming knocking on our doors?
Yeah. I love that word beast. By the way, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., I'll be the one kicking off the session, but I'll be talking about what a beast this you are. It's incredible the people you meet and the way people just flock to you and your advice. It's really amazing. So when you went from being a full-time financial planner to selling the practice, was that a difficult decision to do at the time?
It was very difficult. You know, obviously there's two parts of the equation. First of all, I can't believe we just got an unbelievable, crazy valuation, which is exciting for something like that to happen in your lifetime and create generational wealth. But then there's another part where I'd spent 25 years being a wealth manager or a financial advisor, whatever I called myself over that 25-year period, and that was my identity. Like I carried business cards everywhere I went. Either I was talking to an existing client, and if they weren't a client, then they were a prospective client. Yeah. So that was my identity. That's how I introduced myself to everyone. So that was one part that I really had to really get over as I was contemplating, do I do this for another couple of years? Do I stop now? Yeah. And then I guess the other piece, which was, you know, when you have clients and those clients they want you to win. So you start just loving them. You know, these guys are wanting me to win, and so I was scared that I was going to lose all these relationships. There were clients that became friends, or friends that became clients. It was more clients that became friends. Yeah. So I was scared that, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose all these unbelievable relationships because they're going to go on with their new advisors, and then I'm not going to have that special connection, because I didn't spend too much time over that 25-year period building my own social circle. So I didn't have like the guys' night out, you know, that I didn't hang out with other advisors, or, you know, I hung out with my children's parents, who eventually became clients as well too. So it was the really giving up those client relationships. What I learned after retiring and having no longer any financial economic interest in a wealth management firm, that those relationships continue, which was refreshing. I'd never retired before from wealth management. So just in the last month or so, when we've seen this crazy volatility, my goodness, the voice, I didn't change my cell phone number, even though sometimes I wish I did. So the inbound calls were coming, and they have come inbound over the last 5 years. Here and there, it's usually, do you have 15 minutes? Do you have 10 minutes? And I can't say no. And sometimes my wife teases me because she knows, when you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Right. So I still get on the phone as if they're my first client or only client, and I need to keep them, and I get on the phone and I remind them I'm no longer in the industry. I don't even think I have any licenses anymore because I never did any I never followed up on continuing education. So I'm sure everything's expired by now, I would imagine 5 years by now. But I still get right in the weeds, start asking the questions. And now they're even more interested about my thoughts because they know I'm not part of any firm. Right. So now they're saying, are we with the right advisor? Should we make a switch? And what would you do if you were us? Right. So it makes you feel wanted. So it feels nice, it feels warm and fuzzy. But those are relationships that I know that are going to be there for the decades to come.
Gotcha, right, yeah. There was a study done not too long ago. This is a crazy one. Only roughly 30% of entrepreneurs are prepared for their life post-sale of their business, which, think about that, 70% of small business owners haven't really thought about nor planned for their life, post-sale. And these are like us. We're running 100 miles an hour, and all of a sudden, boom, it just comes to a stop. So did you think about that at the time, and what have been your passions since you did sell the practice?
Well, so my thoughts were, I'd helped so many people, or my team had helped so many people retire over, a quarter of a century, that I kind of just imagined that the ultimate goal was, okay, you go play golf. And which I hate, and I'm horrible at it. Number one, horrible at it. I'm great at joining country clubs and paying the monthly dues, but I'm not a good player at all. And I usually say no, thank you whenever I've been invited. One of my clients questioned me. He goes, he invited me to go to Augusta, And when I told him, I'd rather not, and he goes, for the first time in our relationship, I'm actually questioning your intelligence. So, but it's just one of those things that wasn't for me. Or if you're not playing golf, you're hanging out at the beach, and I don't need a tan, right? So I remember, when the transaction happened and I was retiring, I remember calling Tony. I said, I was excited. He knew that I got the offer and we'd gone back and forth. And I go, Tony, I'm retiring. This is amazing. And he goes, in his initial reaction, right out, was, you're not retiring. He chuckled, you're rewiring. Which I didn't really know exactly what that meant, but with a lot of things that Tony says, some of the nuggets that he says, they make more sense as time goes on.
Yeah.
So I retired for approximately 3.5 hours because Tony said, you know what, why don't we just start our own family office?
Yeah.
And let's just co-invest together. And we're partners. I don't pay him a fee. He doesn't pay me a fee. We just invest together. And the unique access that we get, it's just like literally there's things out there that are opportunities to invest in, and those funds are closed, for new investors. If you go to the website and to try to invest, there's no telephone number. There's just an IR email address for investor relations. And I'll typically, if I'm interested, I'll send an email out saying, I'm sending this email on behalf of Tony Robbins, and he would love to invest in your strategy. And literally every single time, within 24 hours, I get a response back or a call back, because you leave your telephone number as well too, and they said, are you actually talking about the Tony Robbins? And then the response is pretty much almost identical or rhymes to, he changed my life. There's a reason I have X amount of AUM in this strategy, or there's a reason I've become a billionaire, or he saved me from this bad decision. So of course I'll open it up for him. And my response is, perfect, it'll be for Tony and 25 of our closest friends.
Yeah, I love it. The one common theme since I've got to know you is that it is about relationships. The people you've introduced me to, Tony, every single step along the way, it's about your relationship with people. Has that always been your superpower, or what you've always taken pride in?
When I retired, I didn't think I needed any support anymore. As I was building the business, it just happened that there was always a team that was growing and was supporting anything that I needed. So when I retired, part of the non-compete is, hey, please don't pull anybody away from the firm. And I actually had no plans of doing that because that team was taking care of my relationships and friends that I'd built over decades. So I had no intentions of doing that. I also had no intentions of hiring or needing anyone to support me, thinking, I'm retired. I'm just going to manage my portfolio and I'm going to have all the time in the world. But what I realized was I ended up becoming my own assistant. And I'm not a good assistant. Like the time it took me to print something out, getting Wi-Fi connected, laptop connected to the printer, signing something, and then taking a scan. So it was one of those things that I didn't think I needed support. And then slowly I started building a team. And now I'm getting more support where I think I need it right now.
Sure, yeah.
So I don't know why I said that. What was the actual question?
Relationships.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So someone recently said, AJ, you should be spending all your time in your superpower.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, my goodness, getting Wi-Fi connection or Bluetooth connection between my laptop and my printer is not my superpower. Yeah. So what I'm doing now is I'm building proper infrastructure where I could be spending more time nurturing those relationships that I have. I don't know what it's going to mean or what it will be in the future, but I just know that if you surround yourself with brilliant, hardworking, successful people, eventually good things start to happen. Right. You can't time it or expect it, but just know that if you're around that group, I tell my 3 teenage children that, show me your 5 closest friends and I'll tell you your future. Yeah. And one of the most valuable lessons that I learned from Tony was proximity is power. So you want to be around those people that empower you to be your best. And as you're around those people, I noticed I'm a perfect case study as I look back and connect the dots of my life, was as I started meeting more and more fascinating people, let's call it, because they're not just necessarily powerful or rich, but some of these people are the best of the best in whatever they do. As you start meeting those people, you start attracting other people, because other people want to be part of that group, saying, well, I want to understand. So now I'm retired, but some of the most profound relationships are now coming up to me saying, how should I manage my portfolio? And I'm like, my goodness, these people are still searching for financial guidance. And if you look at them or read about them, you'd be like, you would imagine that they've got everything buttoned up. You'd imagine that these families have an army of estate planning attorneys and CPAs and wealth managers and trust officers. And I'm finding out some of these families don't have a revocable trust. They've got the same CPA from 40 years ago that they've outgrown. They haven't done any LLCs. Their portfolios are still in expensive mutual funds. So I start realizing there's so much room for growth, and don't assume that the wealthiest of the wealthiest have everything buttoned up. If anything, a lot of the advisors expect that the wealthy of the wealthiest have everything buttoned up, but I'd say that's an amazing target market, and there's nothing wrong with upping your minimums and going for those relationships, because they're interested.
Yeah.
But they're not interested in the, hey, we've got open architecture, we've got access to low-cost index funds, we'll do some tax loss harvesting, we'll rebalance when the portfolios go into volatility, because that was a great thing to be saying 15 years ago, but now they want to be hearing new things beyond that. They want to be hearing, here's some of the things that we're doing in the alternative investment space. For example, I'm part of an organization called Tiger 21, which is a great organization. I joined it in 2016, and I look at it as kind of like a mini version of YPO, but the members are like, their financial balance sheets is on steroids.
Yeah.
I think to be a member, I think you have to show investable assets of 20 million, and you have to be invited in because there's no room for jerks. They're looking for people that can add value and learn and teach at the same time. But the average net worth of the approximately 1,600 people is $140 million. So these are meaningful relationships, they've built some big businesses. And as I look, and what they do, which is fascinating, is they ask us to submit what our asset allocation is. One of the things that we have to do to be part of this is approximately, if you're a member of 12 people in your chapter, once a year you do what's called a PD, a portfolio defense. And so you're supposed to go up and you're supposed to open up your kimono and show, here's my portfolio. And then you have 5-6 questions that you want to ask the group. And it's usually not about asset allocation or how much cash, it's about softer issues. Like, I haven't told my kids about this, and they're like in their late 20s, and when do I do that? My estate planning, I did it last time in a rush, I need to revisit this. Or they will ask, do you think I have too much money in one asset class? So when it was my turn, I was thinking, oh my God, I'm supposed to have it all buttoned up, like I'm the wealth manager. And I remember sharing my portfolio defense for the first time. I was very nervous because I felt that I was going to be really judged because I'm in the industry. And I remember the comments that I got back was, wow, I would have expected you to have a lot more public stocks and more bonds, but you've got a very diversified portfolio. And when we talk to the Tiger 21 members, which are target market for a lot of people in this room, is they're looking for a lot of things in the private space. Their equity allocation is like around 21%. Their cash is like 10-11% average. This is the average of 1,600 people because they publish a report every quarter because we submit our allocation, not necessarily the dollar amounts to everyone, but just our allocation. And some of their two largest areas is private equity is number one, approximately 31-32%. And the second largest is private real estate, which is around 29 to 30, depending on the trend of the last year or so.
Sure, right. Are those like study group type formats where you talk about everything, or is certain things out of bounds?
So first of all, confidentiality is the number one key caveat. Like in here, our group will talk about someone who's going to get married for the second time and says, how do I bring up the topic of a prenup? Or my son is addicted to this substance and how do I deal with this? So it's very deep and dark stuff, some of the stuff that comes up, but they need someone to speak with because a lot of the members have like-minded questions and concerns and are looking for that peer group. We're all looking for that proximity. So it's not typically, hey, of course, people are talking about how do I increase my portfolio, but that's not really what you join that for. There's enough people out there that are, that you could talk about the investments, but when you could talk to folks about, okay, I want to fly business or I want to fly private, well, my kids are 11 and they're now getting used to saying the word, hey, when's Wheels Up? And they're getting ready for ordering first class or pressing. I remember for myself, the first time I flew on a plane was age 26 because we couldn't afford in my family for us to fly anywhere. Our idea of a family vacation in the summer was to drive 2 hours to another Indian family's house and sleep there on the couches and have Indian food and watch an Indian movie and go back. And that was summer break, basically. So it was, so I realized that I valued the first time I flew on a plane. And then when my children were, 8, 9 years old, we became in the situation where we could fly them business as well with us.
Sure.
And I just remember watching one of my 3 children, as soon as we sat down, they press the call button for the flight attendant. And even till today, I've never pressed the call button for a flight attendant. Like, it doesn't matter how thirsty I am, I just feel so obnoxious. I'll get up and I'll go, excuse me, can I have some water? But they're pressing for more ice. They wanted more ice in their drink. So we pulled the private, the first class travels for them immediately. My wife actually said, we'd be better off paying more for economy and putting them in economy than paying for them and saving money, or even a free seat in luxury. So we have our setup. We sit back business and then front economy for them. So we're close to them. So whenever we fly commercial.
I love it. Well, I'm eternally grateful to AJ, by the way. It was about 4 months ago. I got my ride with AJ in for the first time on a private jet. How do you like that? But what I loved about that is the fact that we could just sit there and talk about our lives, families, business, but integrated partners. And I so appreciate the fact that you were so curious about this group, our organization, where we were trying to get to. And you, in your mind, I'm sure, were kind of basing what you did at Creative in your practice and probably trying to kind of think of the similarities between our two groups. AJ's also been amazing, by the way, at providing some introductions to the organization for clients that have been asking for help. Now they get to know us. Any parts about integrated partners that kind of resonate with you?
You know, first of all, Paul, I'm very impressed by you as who you are as a person and as a leader. And as I've gotten to understand what you've built and the talent that you've attracted, and for the few people that I've met, and some people I've known for more than 20 plus years, and I know who they are, and as a human being, and I'm like, wow. And everyone that I've met so far, I walk away saying, oh my God, they're so warm. Like, I didn't realize that you guys are a hugging firm. I love it. I love hugging, basically. It's amazing. But also the brilliance. And when I've looked at some of the planning capabilities, how you bring in all aspects of the plan and the investment strategies and how you're opening up, you know, you're looking ahead. Like as Wayne Gretzky says, don't go where the puck is, go where the puck is going. And I see the way you're looking at saying, you know what, we need to make sure that we have a robust offering of unique alternatives for our wealth managers to go out there and compete and win. So I just like the leadership and the vision. And from everyone that I've met at the firm, I've been extremely impressed by.
Appreciate that. I was thinking, you're in Tiger 21, you're meeting advisors, you're dealing with some of the most interesting people in the world. Trends in the clients that we want to work with. What's your advice there? What should we be aware of as financial advisors going forward?
Yeah, so I think there's, I always talk to my venture capitalists who've got venture capital funds, and I go, hey, don't forget, the disruptors are going to get disrupted. That's how fast things are moving right now. And some of the things that I see for our industry, I'm kind of looking at my former industry, looking from the outside in now, and I'm looking at how would I build a practice if I started today. And I think some things is, number one, it's clear everyone knows AI is here and it's not going away. And I believe that AI will disrupt our industry, but they won't disrupt the advisors that are using AI to build out the practices and leverage AI. So I think that's something that we need to make sure that we embrace. It takes me a little time to kind of really fully immerse myself in AI, but each day as I'm learning more and more about it, I'm fascinated about what this technology can do in seconds and within minutes. So I think we need to embrace AI, number one. Number two, there's going to continue to be fee compression within the industry. We've already been seeing that for the last 20 plus years. I think that's going to continue. So I feel the way we're going to differentiate ourselves is it's going to be on the planning side, because the traditional stocks and bonds, it is a commodity, and more people don't want to pay full boat, for traditional stocks and bonds. There's a lot of software and technology out there that's kind of doing it for you. So I think what you need to do to separate yourselves is, number one, make sure that you're really focusing on the planning side. Make sure you're bringing in the outside expertise or in-house expertise of the tax piece and the estate planning piece. I really think that's a hard piece to send off to technology. I think I'll repeat myself, but I think also in regards to, you want to be talking about the alternative investment space. You can hear us talking about in the last couple of events, even at Tony's big finance event that we did a couple months ago, the key thing that we talked about was non-correlation. This was something that was a key theme. And Warren Buffett has said, diversification is the free lunch. I believe non-correlation is the new diversification. And we need to start embracing that, because when people come up to me, because now all of a sudden I'm on the receiving end of the pitches, and I'm just kind of listening to what they say and how the pitch books looks, and I'm realizing that everyone has got, the advisors have gotten more sophisticated, the presentations have gotten more sophisticated just in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful output, but what I'm realizing is, you need to be there. So this is a contact sport, as many of you know. So when things get ugly, you need to put in that time, whatever time it takes to reach out to anyone and everyone, because they'll remember. I'm sure every one of you have experienced that, what happened in 2008 or 2000 or during the pandemic is when you were there for your clients, they remember that years later. Sure. They're like, you know what, and when things are good, they're remembering. Because remember, all of your best clients are someone else's best prospects. Sure. So every day that I used to go into the office, I used to go to my team. Today, it's a possibility that every single one of our clients are going to ACAT out. So no matter who calls in today, you need to do whatever you can for them to say, we're going to give this firm another day. Now, by the way, that's not a healthy way to live. But I told them we have to serve them. And without any of these clients, we have no firm, we have no children's education, we have no mortgage payments, we have no retirement nest eggs for our families. So you need to make sure that you're doing anything and everything to protect those relationships. And I think those are some things that you need to be considering. Keep doing the education of whatever the new strategies are in tax and estate planning. And keep out there, from your leadership, Paul, I already know you're doing this, is your team is, vetting institutional quality alternatives. So you can go out and talk to your clients, existing clients, you start talking about unique investments, you're gonna catch their attention, and that's great for retention. And then prospective clients, you start talking about something very unique, and that's gonna help, that's where you're being offensive. So I think you just have to keep doing that and rinse and repeat, and do, like I'd call, when I was CEO of my RA, used to say is I'm not CEO, I'm the chief financial servant. So I wanted to build that culture in my firm that nobody rolled their eyes if a client called for the third time in one day.
Right,
I said, no, they're calling, they're nervous, they're scared, maybe we didn't do a good job of understanding the tolerance of risk. Let's soothe them, let's be there for them. Yeah. And we ended up building a culture of advisors and support team that were there like, clients are king, you take care of the clients and everything else is taken care of.
Yeah, sure. We both share a mutual friendship with Peter Diamandis. AJ more so than myself on the personal end, but I've been involved in study groups and the Abundance Program for many, many years. Matter of fact, when we were on the jet, I shouldn't tell you this, but when AJ wasn't looking, I took a selfie of myself to send to the grandkids, which they got a big kick out of. But then you sent a picture of the two of us to Peter, which I thought was so cute. But in our study groups, he always talks about the fact, and I love this analogy, that imagine an island with a million of the most brilliant financial minds. And at your fingertips, you can access them for anything that you need. Health, relationships, financial planning. You mentioned AI a second ago. As we're all sitting here, how about you personally, or think about the clients that you know out there, how do we incorporate AI into these discussions without disintermediating ourselves in the relationships?
Yeah, well, first, in regards to Peter Diamandis, for those of you who don't know, just a fascinating human being and just a brilliant mind. I remember he was a client and a dear friend, and I remember our team had done a financial plan for him. And for those of you who don't know, he's all about longevity and moonshots. And I remember showing him the financial plan, and of course it looked amazing. And I showed him, hey, even when you die at age 100, you're gonna leave this much to your heirs and their heirs. And then he looked pissed off. And he goes, you've got me dying at age 100? Change it to 150. And I thought that was him being pissed off. He became even more pissed as a friend. We're going back and forth. He's a dear, dear brother of mine. But he goes, we weren't able to take it above 100. Whatever was issue with the software, I just thought, and my team said, no, we can't take it above 100. I go, just compound for another year and take withdrawals for another year, make it work. They go, we got to redo this whole program. We were able to get it done. It took like a month and a half, but it was fascinating that that's exactly what he wanted to see. Again, that's what he wanted to see. And we didn't take it as a joke. We figured it out. We paid a lot of fees to the consultants to make sure that the technology was set up. And more I'm realizing there's a lot of people that are going to be living, past 100 based upon all the technology. We just have to stay around to be alive another 5-7 years. But to answer your question about AI, I feel like this is where I'm a little nervous, even for myself. And I'm not building a practice, but I've got a lot of interest in a lot of businesses. So I feel that if I close my eyes or blink, I'm going to become a dinosaur. So now, just recently, I said I enrolled in a program where I'm going to start learning. I don't just use ChatGPT. Now I'm using Perplexity and Claude and a couple other pieces. I'm trying to understand what the differences are. Even in, as I'm writing reports or trying to understand things, I'm realizing some things are better for writing, some things are better for research. So I think what you need to be doing is you need to be going out there. There's a lot of courses out there that you can sign on online. For like a couple $100, you could have a 30-day daily content for 30 days. Well, you learn so much for like $100. So, getting access and learning about AI has really become democratized. And I feel that each of you, each of us, we have to be responsible for ourselves to go out there and take the effort, because it's going to change things dramatically. The way the internet changed everyone's lives, the way the iPhone has changed everyone's lives, I think the next thing is going to be, that I'm looking at from my perspective, is AI and robotics. Robotics are coming, and these robotics, they could work 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can get one for like $30,000, cheaper than a car. And the work that they could do, they could move homes, they could clean houses, they could take care of all kinds of complex things. And you mix robotics with AI, and certain things will definitely be very scary, which we'll have to figure out. But I could see a world where we have more robots than humans on this planet. Well, at least that's what I started thinking. So, and all you should be doing is, what I'm doing right now is I'm just trying to get my arms around it. And I'm not there yet, because it's happening so quickly.
We had an amazing presentation this morning from Jeff, and he's at the cutting edge of AI in leadership, and certainly his message was amazing this morning. I was thinking, so you've known Tony for how many years now?
Tony, I'm 54, so I first met Tony when I was 22 or 23 through a cassette.
Wow.
Not even my cassette.
Yeah.
My friend who was in medical school, because I couldn't afford the cassettes back then, and he was just listening to these cassettes to inspire himself to keep going and doing these all-nighter residencies. And I listened to cassette number 1, and I go, oh, that's pretty interesting stuff. And then I listened to cassette number 2. And then at one point I said, can I borrow your cassettes? Because you're not listening to it right now. And I borrowed it, and I started listening to it. And what I did not realize, by the way, I went through a 30-day program in like 3 days, because I couldn't stop listening to it. And what I did not realize that was happening, I was kind of transforming my thought, the way I thought, the way I set my goals, the way I handled obstacles, the way I said take action right away. And so I first met him there. And then about 2 years later, he was doing an event, an all-day event, and I went to that event, sat in the back of the room, and saw him for a whole day, and I was just even more impressed with his presence and how much he cares about people and how much impact he wants to make on people's lives, and how he just hates human suffering. So he can't help it. He just is looking for ways to end human suffering. But I didn't have the courage to go up to the front of the room and shake his hand. It was just like, he was bigger than, just this big man and bigger than life itself. And I was just like, I didn't have the courage. And then I went home, and of course I regretted it. I'm like, oh my goodness, I was driving home. I go, I could have. Back then he used to stay back and shake hands and take pictures. And this was, decades ago. So then what happened, fast forward, I started building my business. I was born and raised in Montreal, Canada, and I wanted to move to the United States and build the American dream. And I remember listening to now his CDs that I'd bought by myself, so now I can afford the CDs. And I remember listening to them, and I wanted to move to San Diego. I just thought that's one of the most beautiful places to live, and that would be an ultimate place to retire, and what a great place to build a business. And I remember going back to this was when I was working at Merrill Lynch in Montreal, which is where I was raised and studied. And I remember listening to his CDs, and I said, I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to retire in San Diego. I'm going to go right now and move over there. So I went up to my director, who was, very intense, very, very intimidating, and very, very tough on me. Very tough on me. And I remember going to him, and I built a really nice practice in my first 3-4 years over there. And I said, I want to go to San Diego. I want to continue building my business over there. I've already got back then it was like I was managing, I think, $70 million of assets under management. Had not hit 100, but it was good, really good for age 29 in 1998. So for me, it was like my dream was, my ultimate goal in financial freedom was, I want to manage $100 million. And then $100 million at 1%, that'll be $1 million. And then I'll be $1 million producer. Like, that was my ultimate goal and dream. And then I did the math. At $1 million with the big wirehouses, 60% approximately went to the house, 40% came to me. So that'd be $400,000. And 40% tax bracket, I'd be making approximately $20,000 a month. And I thought, that's unbelievable.
Sure.
I'll be able to live an amazing life, and I'll be able to retire at 65. And through his cassettes and through some of the learnings, I'm like thinking bigger. I go, well, I want to manage 100 million for 100 clients. What if I was able to manage 100 million of my money, or more than that? And so then you start thinking differently. You just have to ask yourself different questions, much higher quality questions. And ultimately, that ended up happening, but it was because of his teachings. So he became my hero. So when I was referred to him, which was amazing, when I moved to the US, I made this list of all these amazing people that at some point I wanted to have in my book of business. And I'm sharing this with you, not to impress you, but more to share with you that manifestation. And like I remember I used to go on my Merrill Lynch, it used to be called TGA. That was the technology system. I type in Robbins and press enter, and nothing will pop up because he wasn't a client. Yeah. I type in Chopra. I type in Larry King. Nothing. I type in Mike Tyson. And the list goes on, and none. They won't pop up. But somehow or another, the majority of that short list became relationships of mine or clients of mine. So I feel that he just helped me think bigger. Yeah. But not just think bigger, but just also give strategies of how to accomplish those goals, how to take immediate action, and the inevitable obstacles are going to come. As Mike Tyson said, everything is good until you get punched in the face. And in our industry, we get punched in the face all the time. It's not easy. We're managing relationships, we're managing client retention, we're managing diverse markets going all over. We have families at home. We're trying to manage that, and that's a roller coaster ride when you're addicted to what you do. Many of us in this room, I know that you're addicted to your business. I know I was. I used to spend 24/7 just thinking about clients, thinking about prospecting, thinking about production, thinking about building out a team, thinking about having a better mousetrap. I'd go home at the end of the day, I'd be there with my wife and kids, and I thought, you know what? All I'm doing is working and being with my family. I'm doing the right thing. But when I was at home, I wasn't present. I was there with my kids, looking at my BlackBerry before that it wasn't even BlackBerries, but look at my BlackBerry, then iPhone, then sneaking out to let me just do a quick 15-minute call, or let me just respond to this quick text in the middle of a conversation. So it was just one of those things where we have to find that proper balance because we all want to grow. This is the best industry in the world that you're a part of, and we get to grow. There's no limits, and you're able to pick your clients. You're able to pick them. It's easier to pick and choose as your practice gets more mature. Because I remember at the beginning, I just picked anybody that would open an account and talk to me. I can't believe how much time I spent with clients that weren't paying fees or weren't nice or whatever the case is. And as your practice gets larger, and even as you're looking at your clientele right now, there's maybe some clients that maybe you've outgrown, and you might be like, what if I took off, reduced 10%, and I'm not saying this in a mean way, but what if you reduced your book by 10% of the clients that take up a lot of time and maybe you've outgrown, and pass them on to another really good colleague that could really take care of them and help them build their business. But that 10% maybe freed up 30% of your time, and you maybe gave up 3% of your revenue. Now you've got all this time, and you can spend more time with your best clients. And we all have talked about segmenting our books, but the power of segmenting and spending time, that 80-20 rule, it's amazing how quickly you could double your business if you take that hard decision. And as someone who's attached to people and doesn't like confrontation and doesn't like competition, it's a hard thing to do. But if you do that in a small way, those clients will be better well looked after. You'll be able to make sure that you're retaining your biggest clients, and by working on those relationships, you're able to grow your business in a more calm way where you have more balance in your home life and exercising and all those things that we should be doing. I don't want to deviate, but I want to share something with everyone in this room because I think it's important. When I was building my business, I book annual physicals. But the moment I had a referral that wanted to talk to me on the day of my physical, I'd be like, oh, you know what? I can do a physical another time. This prospect might not meet with me another day. I can't tell them that I'm having an annual physical. They might not meet with me the week after. So I pretty much missed 25 years of 25 physicals consistently because there's always an excuse to focus on your business versus your health. So one of the businesses that Tony founded and Peter Diamandis founded, and I was an original investor with them, is called Fountain Life. And what I'm excited about Fountain Life is what it does is it's where you go there and you get all the most advanced diagnostics done that you can ever imagine. It's every type of MRI, body scan, brain scan, your arteries, you get it all done. Every type of advanced blood work that they don't do at the Mayo Clinic or the Cleveland Clinic, they do that. And 14% of the healthy people that go there get diagnosed with something. 14% of these healthy people that are going there with no symptoms. And sometimes it could be cancer, it could be brain aneurysms, it could be all different things. So I know for myself, after retiring, I went and did everything, and then I got the call April 21st, 6:17 p.m. when I was sitting at home, and the doctor said, "You've got cancer."
Wow.
And I was like, "Cancer?" And my original thoughts were like, wait a second, I know I wrote this business plan where I'm gonna come to the United States, I'm gonna get married, I'm gonna have children, then I'm gonna have great-grandchildren, and I'm gonna build a business, I'm gonna make a lot of wealth and provide for my family. But never in my business plan was it, you're gonna make a lot more money than you ever expected, then you're gonna sell your business, and then the year later you're gonna die from cancer. That was not my business plan. And what I now encourage everyone that I know and care about in the room, by the way, because I caught it so early, so early, they nipped it in 6 months. The problem really comes is when you find something after having symptoms. That's where the real risk is. So I'm telling everyone in this room, no matter where you live in the country, if you live in, right now we have Fountain Life Centers in New York, Dallas, Naples, and Orlando, and spreading around the country. And if you can't go to one of those locations, find another company, a competitor in your city, but go get it done tomorrow. Immediately. It's worth every penny. Unfortunately, statistically speaking, there'd be probably a dozen people in this room that would find something, and hopefully find it something really early on where they can just nip it right away. So that's probably the most important message that I could share with everyone in this room that goes well beyond investments or our industry. Tony always says someone with their health has a million dreams. Someone without their health has only one dream. So I encourage everyone to go out there, look up Fountain Life or something in your area that does all those body scans, and it'll be the best couple $1,000s that you spent. And you should spread that word with everyone that you know and care about. Because as I've shared this message with a lot of people over the years, it's amazing the number of people that have come back to me, friends, clients, that say to me, "You saved my life." And I can go on with stories and stories about that. So I'd encourage everyone to, whatever zip code you live in, there's definitely something close by you that does that kind of work, and I strongly encourage you to schedule that appointment today. That's how strongly I want to share that with everybody. And I'm fully healthy. It was done. I'm so glad it was caught so healthy. But I just thought, what if I never retired and I spent another 10 years doing it? So everything happens. Everything's a blessing. The universe is kind.
Well, thanks to you and Peter, I had my first Fountain Life physical done about a month ago. It is the most extensive physical in the world, by the way. But inside the study group, Peter is always telling us that the theory from a health standpoint is don't die of something stupid. So you're able to find it early and take care of it. And so it's kind of funny, we all discuss like what is stupid and what should we or shouldn't we do. We have a laugh about that. But fortunately, I was not part of the 14%, so my test came back not great, but good, so nothing is dangerous there. But it is amazing when you get that data in front of you, and we talked about AI a second ago, and I've told some of you this. Think of the million people at your fingertips to do a financial plan or whatever. I would say 60% of my physical was done by AI with the doctor. Isn't that amazing? I'm going to tell you a story tomorrow morning and give you more details on something that also took place. But the power of knowing that I had a million of the most brilliant health minds looking at all my data. And what was amazing is they were able to take blood work against an MRI and compare and contrast what was going on there. And not only tell me today what looked good, but looking forward what to be careful of. And so, very special program. And it was the level of detail, the people that were there, the quality of the human beings that were there, and the caring that they had was really.
But you took action. We talked about it, and then 10 days later, you told me I already have an appointment, I'm going. I'm like, oh, because I tell a lot of people, and I probably think maybe 1% or 2% of people take the action, but you took action, which just tells me, your leadership style. When something makes sense, you're like, okay, as Tony says, when would now be a good time to do this?
Yeah.
And you did it. I'm glad. Now that you do it each year, you're going to have a baseline, so that you're going to be able to track trends, and it's amazing because we work so hard and we want to take care of other people. Sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves, forget to take care of our health. We don't prioritize our investment portfolio because we're focused on the clients that are paying us the fees. But you want to stay strong and healthy, financially strong as well too, so you could take longer care of your clients. Just imagine you could work another. I know there's some people in this room that 100% say, as I used to say, I'm going to do this forever. I'm never stopping. This is amazing. I'm going to stop until someone tells me I can't count or add anymore. And just imagine you can add an extra 5, 10 years of quality life. Just imagine how your wealth will compound just because you took small steps today, which really at the end of the day, it's where you should be spending some of your time and energy. People spend more time planning their vacations than they do on their health plan. I'd say, focus on the health side even more.
It's true. Plus, I want more selfies for the grandkids, so I gotta be able to pull that off. You know, the other part too about it that amazed me is that I'm surrounded by two people in my life. Dan Sullivan, who I've talked about him for almost 30 years, and now Peter. Dan's stated goal is to live till 157, and he does plot his progress towards getting to that number, which I always found that funny because he does a whole program where he says, I'm gonna live to 157, and then he'll say, but up until that point, I'll be like running around, super healthy, and jumping out of planes and all that. But then we're always like, well, then why'd you pick 157 as the number? So it's always a running joke. I don't think Peter has a number, does he? He just wanna...
Well, I know that, it's probably 8, 9 years ago, but I know the number 150 came out because, boy, it shook my business right away.
Yeah.
And we had to come up with a financial planning software that, went up to 150, and we actually ended up doing where you go as high as you want, just once you do it. But it used to be 150, but knowing Peter, that number's changing.
Yeah.
And technology's here, like the technology that's like when Tony was writing Life Force, like Tony's the only person that I know that could write a financial book and it becomes a New York Times bestseller. Many of you have already been given The Holy Grail of Investment, which is the third book of his financial trilogy. But all three books, his first one is Money Master the Game, which is still New York Times' #1 personal finance book of the century. So, but then in between that, he writes a book on cutting edge health, and it's called Life Force, and that also became New York Times bestseller. So I don't know anyone that could write something about two totally opposite disciplines, but I guess what it comes down to is he's got access. He had access to the most powerful people in finance when he was putting his time and energy there, and then when he was writing Life Force, he interviewed some of those fascinating brains and scientists and researchers from around the world, and I had a chance to meet some of these people. We had a chance to invest alongside some of these people early on, and the technology that's out there in the healthcare space that we're thinking is going to be around 20 years from now, it's here today. It's already here. It's already being tested. You just want to know about this. So as much as we all like reading financial books, maybe you should pick up some health-related books and go online and learn more about that, because that's it's changing dramatically.
But it's like anything in life, when you're surrounded by, like yesterday we played golf, and JL, who's an amazing golfer, we learned to be better golfers by being around good golfers, and around great entrepreneurs or great financial planners, it just ups everybody's game. But to be surrounded by people that are so focused on their health and so willing to share their story of what they're doing, it's really amazing to see that.
It's I feel like the 80 is the new 60,
Yeah, it
and
is.
then that number is going to keep going up over time is what I'm seeing. So it's exciting. It's fun. It's as I tell my wife and kids, I want to stick around and enjoy meeting my great grandchildren and being healthy. It's not just someone once said to me, a Tiger 21 guy. I remember he said, AJ, everything I look at in life is through the lens of QTR, and I was like, okay, what does QTR mean? I remember that, and he goes, quality time remaining. And I was like, wow, not just time remaining, but quality time remaining. And if you look at through that lens, you're gonna think twice about some of the things that you do. You're like, do I really wanna spend this time for the next 20 minutes with doing this versus that? And if you look at life through the lens of quality time remaining, we all would probably make some different choices.
True. All right, they're sick and tired of me being up here, by the way, so. We wouldn't have Tony here without you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I so appreciate that. We're also looking forward to hearing you and Tony sit here and talk. What should we expect from the presentation with you and Tony?
Well, first of all, Tony also went to Fountain Life, and recently he was diagnosed with, or I don't know if the word is diagnosed, but they found arsenic poisoning inside him. And on a scale of 1 to 5, 50 would be off the charts. And he was at 345. And so that led to his retina to get detached. So he just recently had eye surgery, so he hasn't done anything public in the last couple of weeks. So I think the objective is I think he's just going to share, what his thoughts are about why he wrote The Holy Grail Investing, and he's doing this as a favor. I've shared with him on press time with you and the firm. So I think the best way to do this is, why don't we put him up on video and start with a quick short video.